Hi everyone, it's Sandy Peckinpah joining you live on this, what day is this? Tuesday. Cynthia, you're already here. Hooray. Judy's here. Hooray. I'm so glad. And I hope Sally's on today because guess what? I'm going to be talking about Sally. How are you, Jessica? How are you? Yay. We had a good group on yesterday. Wow, I really liked our conversation. I learned as much from you as hopefully you learn from me, and we're going to be continuing our conversation on creativity. And I'm going to be talking about waking up your creative life. You're great. Yes, we did. Yay, that's validation. So I am great. I had a lovely afternoon with my husband. I did some work this morning, and then about 1:30 we took off. We went and we got ice cream together in this there's a part of Temecula that's Old Town, and they have this wonderful ice cream store. So I had to go get the salted caramel. They make it themselves right in the shop, and it's made with liquid nitrogen. It's like smoke everywhere. It's so dramatic, and it is so delicious. It makes it creamier than you can ever imagine. So that's what we did this afternoon. It was delicious. And then we visited another place called Chef Flavor, and actually a friend's friend opened that store, and it has all kinds of wonderful accoutrements for, there's a word for you, my dear. You probably know this word, 8 Fry, if you're on here, accoutrement. For the cook, all kinds of salts and sauces and cheeses and wine. And so we bought everything, and we're going to cook a fabulous meal today. And I am so excited. So anyway, today, yes, nummy. Today I want to talk about the courage to create and put your work out there. Jessica knows all about this. Why? Because Jessica has written a book, My Pulse, His Will, and she had the courage to put her story on the computer and work hard at it, and then ended up publishing it. And today it's a book. If you don't know this book, check it out on Amazon. My Pulse, His Will. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, the courage to create, the courage to bring to life your stories that can mean so much in other people's lives. So that's my phone ringing, and it's probably a telemarketer, but we're just going to ignore it. It'll stop after 4. So let's go back to the start. I'm Sandy Peckinpah. I'm an author. I've written 4 books. I'm in the process of writing my 5th book. Trudy, welcome. And I am so proud of my passion for writing. Oh, my sister's on the broadcast too. Hey, Sue. I'm so proud of the fact that I've been able to make something meaningful out of a passion that I had for as long as I can remember. I mean, my sister Sue knows that I used to keep a diary, and I used to slide it under my mattress. And, it was one of those things that I absolutely loved passionately doing. And that's what I want to share with you is creative passion. And this doesn't mean that you have to be a painter or a writer or, a photographer. This means that passion comes from the deepest part of you and makes your life come alive. That's what we're talking about, that kind of passion, that kind of creativity. Because if you are not a creative person, and by the way, everyone is, every single one of us, but some people lose their confidence in their creativity, their ability to tell a story, their ability to connect with another person, their ability to be a creative salesperson, their ability to be creative on their jobs, in their personal lives. And so that is what we're talking about today, is the courage to create and put your work out there. I said yesterday in my broadcast, and for those of you who are just joining, oh, and I think I wanted to say hi to Sarah because she just came on the broadcast too. For those of you who were on the broadcast yesterday, yes, okay, you always second guess yourself. Whether it's in decorating your home or putting on clothing, choosing your clothing, people don't have confidence in their ability to be creative. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the courage to create. I got inspired by this book, Big Magic, by Elizabeth Gilbert. And for those of you who don't know Elizabeth Gilbert, I bet every one of you does, she wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. And I watched her broadcast. She did a TED Talk. And she said that, what is it like to put probably your greatest work out there when you are in your 30s, you know, that you're not even close to being done with this life. And she said it was a really difficult thing for her to sit down and write that next book. And guess what? She says right on this TED Talk that next book was a great big bomb. Can you imagine finding the courage to sit down and write and put your work out there again and again and again? Why did she do that? I'll tell you why. Because it made her life come alive. Because her work as a writer is so much a part of who she is that she can't not write. And I know that there are things inside of you, that all of you, that you have that same kind of passion. Now, for example, Jessica is a nurse, and she had the most incredible story, like we all have. We all have some incredible story in our lives. But her incredible story came as a big surprise, because one day her husband died. And her story became the subject of her book because it was a story that people wanted to know more. She went on the Today Show and told her story. And through that process, she recognized that maybe her story had meaning and value in other people's lives. So her book, My Pulse, His Will, she wrote because she knew the power of stories in people's lives. Did it mean that because she was a nurse, she wasn't able to write her story because she had chosen nursing as a profession? No, it doesn't mean that at all. In fact, I've written 4 books. I've also been a speaker, and I've been interviewed on television shows and radio shows and in magazines about my books. But do my books pay my bills? No, they don't. But do they fuel the part inside of me that wants to make a difference? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And see, Jessica agrees. So, the incredible part about creativity is that we all have something inside of us that is a creative part that aids us, that is born inside of us, the desire to create. Otherwise, we wouldn't do all the creative things that we do as children. And I've mentioned this before. You know, we all painted as children. We all played with clay. We all made sandcastles. We all, you know, played with dolls and created stories. You know, we had those kinds of moments in our lives that woke up the creative right brain. And so when you look inside of yourself and you say, what is it that has been the through line in my life? Then you can start to pinpoint things that continue to pop up in your life as pop-up moments where one thing drives another. And so for Jessica, her story about her husband and people wanting to know about it drove her desire to bring out the writer in her to create a book. Now, I don't know if Jessica is ever going to write another book, but I know she did something that she knew she had to do. And how satisfying is that? So, I want to share with you that I love, see, maybe, and I hope you do. It only gets better, Jessica. It only gets easier. One book from one book to another. Yep. Write another book, because it does get easier as you learn more about the process and gain your confidence that you can do it. The better you get at it, the more efficient you get at it. And I shared yesterday, Cynthia knows this, we talked about it, how when you read your blogs or your writing from years ago, and then you look at it now, I think Cynthia started her blog in 2005, and you look at it now and you go, whoa, I've grown. I've grown as a human being, and I've grown as a writer. Thank you for the hearts, by the way. So I'm going to share what that means to me when I say I want to wake up your creative life, because it means something different to each one of you. And Cynthia says most definitely. But what I want to do is just plant the seeds of an idea that you actually do have something inside of you that is creative, that is a passion and a desire. And yeah, we have to sometimes work up the courage to claim it, but we got to do it. Otherwise, we're not fulfilling our potential, our God-given potential. So I want to share a little something also about another student of mine, Sally Latimer. And Sally came to me in the depths of despair 3 years ago. She had just lost her son, and the anniversary of that 3-year mark is just coming up. She had just lost her son, and she was stuck in the mire of grief that you can only imagine when you lose a child. Some of you on this broadcast, I know for sure you can relate to this feeling because you've experienced loss. And some of you, maybe you've experienced loss in other forms. And some of you may not have experienced loss in the way of losing a family member, but you've experienced loss of maybe health or a job that meant everything to you, or a home. Thank you for the hearts validating that. Oh, and 8 Fry joined us. I'm so glad you're here because I said a word for you, 8 Fry, that I know you know. Accoutrement. Accoutrement. ACCUTREMENTS. At the beginning of this broadcast, I said, oh, I wish 8 Fry was here. Your hearts match my shirt. Yay, thank you. Keep them coming then. So I was just sharing about the courage to create. I don't think I know that word. Say again. In English, it's accoutrement, meaning sort of accessories that belong or go with to make something, to create something. Like I was talking about the accoutrement for cooking things, because I was in a shop earlier today that I bought special salts with my husband, and I bought salts and sauces and cheeses and stuff. Accoutrement for our cooking tonight. Special ingredients. So, all right, let's get back to this courage thing, the courage to create and put your work out there. So Sally Latimer came to me, as I said. You're so welcome. 3 years ago when she had just lost her son. Now she was lost in grief. She was angry. She was upset, as you can imagine what life is like. And knowing what it feels like to lose a child, having lost a child, I could relate to her feelings. I could label them. I could name them. But every person's experience in grief is different. So I couldn't say I knew exactly what she was going through. But I did say, I'd like to help you. And I am certified as a grief recovery specialist with the Grief Recovery Institute in Los Angeles. And I have a program that I take people through. It's an 8-week program, going through the stages and steps of grief as they believe it should be done. And I think it's a wonderful program. So Sally's pain broke my heart, and I said, I want to help you. And she went through the grief recovery program. 8 Fry says, was being with others who lost a child a major part in your healing process? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That is absolutely true. Oh, I love it. Inner peace. That's a great handle. Welcome. We're talking about the courage to create. And I am sharing the story about working with a woman who had just lost her child. And as relatable as it was for me, because I had lost my child at 16, I didn't know what her journey of grief was going to be, because everybody is different. Cynthia says, definitely was for me as well. It's an important connection. There you go. Because Cynthia has experienced that loss. And it is a point of connection in making yourself available to other people who have been through it. I believe it's a sisterhood. It's a brotherhood. It's a lot of people call it a club. It's not, it's an experience that you go through that suddenly when you meet another person who has been through it, you're connected forever. Right? Jessica knows. When you experience loss and you meet another person who has a similar loss or even loss period, you have a special connection with that person. There is comfort, yes. Yes, there is. It's also a great measure, because I often, when I work with my grief recovery people, I can remember so well the stages that I went through, and it's a monitor for me to see how far I've come. And it's a reminder to me to also know that in a heartbeat, I can go back to that pain. Sometimes it's just a memory. Sometimes it's finding a Post-it note that he wrote to me stuck in a book from long ago. I find those little hearts, pressed flowers, those little things that pop up that I believe are meant to be found in a time when maybe you need to have that connection with that person. And it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful feeling. So when I took Sally through that grief recovery program, I began to see this spark of something rising up in her. And not only was she learning to live with the loss of her child, but in the process, she awakened to things that brought her joy. She joined a group in her church that helped her. The two of us met on a regular basis, and it helped her. She talked with other parents who were struggling and could say, I know how you're feeling. Oh, Brandy, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope you have a chance to go back and watch the first part of it, but basically what we're talking about is the courage to let your creative self out. Hey, welcome. Yeah, let your creative self out. And I'm sharing the story about connecting with a woman who had just lost her child. And in the process of her recovery, as I was working with her, I saw the spark of something great rising up inside of her. And not only, as I said, was she learning to live with the death of her child, but it was awakening the things inside of her that she remembered started to feel good, like helping other people. Her animal rescue, getting a dog. Her heart started to come alive again. She began a cosmetic business and found joy in waking up to doing something that she loved and something that she knew she could share with other women that would make them feel good about themselves. And then along the way, she had read my book, How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen. And it is, for those of you who don't know, it's a parent's guide to healing after the loss of a child. I'm really proud of that book. And Sally said something that profoundly made a difference in my feelings about myself. God showed me my miscarried child in heaven makes me think my story can... Oh, yes, Brandy. Oh, I have goosebumps. Yes, yes, yes. You simply must. There are other people on this broadcast who have done it, who have shared their story. 8 Fry says, when you finished the book, was there a part of you that knew it would be so well received? No. I knew a handful of people that might buy it, but what surprised me was the far-reaching possibilities that I didn't consider. And Sally was one of those people because she said, Sandy, there was one line in your book that made such a profound difference in my life that I had to begin to live again. And that sentence was, honor your child by healing. Honor your child by healing. J.K. Rowling wrote in her debut book, Harry Potter, that every child will know Harry's name. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Hey, Jane. Welcome. I love all of you on Periscope that join me night after night. Thank you so much. It just really feels so welcoming. So Sally, in the process of going through the grief recovery program, talking to other parents, she uncovered her own desire to tell her story. Now, it wasn't just her story of loss that she wanted to tell. She said, I realized my children don't know anything about my life. I protected them from so much. Now, this was an exciting prospect to me because I had learned a lot about Sally through taking her through the grief recovery program. And Sally then hired me to help her and take her through my writing program, which I love doing. And today, right now, this week, Sally's book is on Amazon. She finished her book. She had it edited. She sent it to a publisher. And it is on Amazon today. It's called A Light at the End of the Tunnel, Surviving a Grief Storm. Yes, isn't that fantastic, Jessica? Look, my cup matches my top too. I didn't do that on purpose, but almost. I think I like that color. So, Brandy, write your story. Goodness, yes, it will help. I always say, when you write your book or your story or your blog, it could help one person or many. Does it matter if it helps? Yes, congratulations to Sally. The title is called A Light at the End of the Tunnel, Surviving a Grief Storm. And it's on Amazon. Her name is Sally Latimer, Latimer. And here's what she said. And this is what I want you to know, Brandy, if you're even considering it, because this is what she said. She wrote to me. She said, guess what? Amazon has my book today. And what brought me such joy was what she said. There are many stories, all different, so encouraging. I thank God for you. Wow, thanks, Brandy. We all have great stories. That's life. We all have stories that we can share that mean something to someone else. You know, my friend that I talked about yesterday on this broadcast, Karen Baldwin, how we had, joined together in the writing process in about 1998. She's got an incredible story to tell, an incredible hardship she's experienced and her book is going to be coming out, so you'll be able to read the whole story. But challenges that, people think, oh, she was Miss Universe. She's, the most beautiful person in the world. What a beautiful life she has. She's had challenges, and she's writing about it in her book today. And it will be published. So in Sally's book, what she said when she wrote to me, Sandy, it's up on Amazon right now. And here's what she said, and I want to read it because I broke down and cried when I read it. But I want you to listen to what had the greatest impact on her. 8 Fry says, ultimately, it's what's in your head that makes you a happy person. Yes, it's fulfilling your dreams. It's fulfilling your destiny and your purpose. So, Sally said, Sandy, I knew I had a story inside of me. It just took Andy's death to bring it out. I am so happy to be honoring him with this book. And no words could describe my gratitude to you for mentoring me through my writing, as well as mentoring me through the timeline and helping me see a pattern of my life. I feel, here's the most important thing, I feel I am not the same as I was on March 6th, 2014. I am not the same at all. She's not. She had a very tumultuous childhood that was burning to get out of her and onto paper. Was 3 years ago when she lost her child? Yes. 3 years ago, March 6th. And sometimes when you have those stories in your life, and she had this tumultuous, as she calls it, storm of life, of abuse, she talks about, of being shuttled from, her mother didn't want her. She was given away. She had, in a very abusive situation. My book just came, your book just came out, right? Oh yeah, my book had just come out a month before. No, actually a few days before, because my book had come out on February 28th. So, isn't today February 28th? I think that's when my book came out. 3 years ago today. Woo! I'm going to show you my book. There it is. Yeah, 3 years ago. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it. Yes, it's a bookversary. And it has made a difference in people's lives, and I never anticipated that. I just knew that my book had to be written. Pascal, welcome. Yes, a bookversary. That is funny. Fantastic. Thanks, Jessica. 8 Fry, I can always count on you. So what does that mean? That's what I want all of you to know about the creative process, that sometimes it takes a tragedy to wake it up. that I was never more creative than when my son died, because my brain longed to find the things that soothed it. And so my sister knows this. For the next couple of years, everybody got hand-painted bowls and plates and pitchers and mugs, because I'd go into the art studio every day and I'd create these pieces, and I'd bring my children in. My little children were like ducks walking behind me into the studio after school, after their activities, and we'd paint and paint and paint, and sometimes no words would take place, and all four of us would sit there painting. And it was really a remarkable time, because we were one in this artistic endeavor. And my children, to this day, my daughter paints to soothe herself. And if you go to her house, you'll see some of her fun paintings. She has a really unique style. And my son Trevor is an artist. He's had gallery showings in Los Angeles, and he paints to soothe. Because guess what? Your creative brain doesn't stop when you're wounded, when life wounds you. In fact, what do they say about, like Hemingway, tortured writers? Some of their, great paintings were created in a time when you often are the most troubled, because your brain looks for the thing that will make you feel better. His body is his canvas. Yes, he's also got several tattoos. So, when Sally said that, I knew I had to do this broadcast about this, because I wanted you to know about the importance of your stories, and how knowing your story awakens you to becoming a new person. Because all of that abuse that she went through, all of that tortured life of being, thrown out of her home, it all is something that stayed inside of her until it suddenly could not. And that was when her son died. She wanted to tell her story out loud. And that's what I did with my book. I shared my story. Did it take courage? Yes. Sometimes our lives aren't pretty. Sometimes we're not very pretty. I shared some very awkward things. He was in his 30s. My son was 16, but Andy, Sally's son, was in his 30s. I shared some really private things about my life, but I felt that I had to, because I knew that it would make a difference. And I often get thanked for sharing the part about my after I lost my son, about feeling out of control and feeling compulsive. And, being up in the middle of the night, organizing my library of, we had probably 300 to 500 books. I'd be organizing it in the middle of the night to stop feeling the pain of the loss of my child. I was tired. I was tired for years because I couldn't sleep. Yes, he'd be 39. 39 today. Yeah. So, even if you never write a book, you can benefit from what I teach you about your stories. It helps others realize that we are not the only ones out there struggling with the loss. That's right. And it makes you feel not so bad. You try so hard to be a good person and to, handle situations and stuff, and you try so hard not to be ashamed. And I just remember thinking how shameful it was that I couldn't tell anybody that I felt so compulsive. It helps to normalize the feelings, yeah. So one of the things that I do is take people through the process of learning about their stories. Whether you're a writer or not, you benefit from knowing your story. And I use a tool that I learned from the Grief Recovery Institute, the timeline, and I take it, into a step that goes in the direction of you learning about your whole life instead of just the grief recovery process, which actually there are so many things that you have that you can recover from in the grief recovery process, because people think grief is just loss. No, grief is like so many areas of life. Grief is the loss of a job. Grief is moving from one town to another. Grief is, a friend that betrays you and you no longer have that friend. Grief is the process of losing a beloved pet, of, losing dreams. Grief and strife makes us stronger. Oh, yes. That's beautiful, Brandy. Grief and strife. It makes us stronger. It does. And the more that we put it out there for other people to see, the more we connect with people on a deeper level. You see, our stories are the clues to who we are about to become. Does that make sense? Eine Heng, welcome. I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly, but welcome. Our stories are the clues about who we're about to become, because there are through lines in our lives that can tell us the secrets. Through my whole life, I wrote in one way or another. I think my mother still has a poem that I wrote to her when I was 16 and I was in Italy with the singing group. And I remember being at the Castel Gandolfo, which is the Pope's summer home, and we were invited by the Pope to sing. And we sang for him, and we also stayed in his summer home, which is Castel Gandolfo, outside of Rome. And I remember that looking out from the rooftop, we crawled up to the rooftop, and you could see all over the mountains and the valleys, and there were yellow flowers and flowers everywhere. And I remembered writing this poem for my mom for Mother's Day, because Mother's Day was coming up. And then we didn't have cell phones, and it was impossibly expensive to make a phone call from Italy to back home in Monterey, California. So what I did was I wrote. And so I would send letters, and I decided that this would be my Mother's Day gift to her, was this poem that I wrote. And so poetry was sort of a through line. I have some of it still in my treasure chest of writings. And I recognized that then when I married a man who wanted to become a writer, that it was the two of us that woke up each other's creative life, because he hadn't written anything when I married him. He had written one poem, by the way. One poem called Old Bill. And when I asked him, and we had met on the first night, and I asked him, what do you want to do with your life? And he says, I want to be a writer. And I said, well, let's write. Shoot, I know about that. I love writing. And then suddenly it was magic. And my late husband became a very famous television producer and writer. He was very gifted, and I helped him every step of the way. And he taught me about writing too. He taught me how to be consistent. He taught me how a writer doesn't get to choose when she wants to write. You just sit down and do it. You don't wait for inspiration. You just sit down and do it. You wake it up. And that's what the whole premise of this broadcast is waking up your creative life. You don't wait for the inspiration. You do it by scheduling it, by having a starting ritual. And this is what I teach all of my writers that I'm working with, that I've worked in the past and working with now. That must have been so fun to be involved in. It was. We had a fun life, a great life. But was it always fun? No, it was a hard job. There were great elements about it. I remember Steve Cannell saying, you know, I know why people, did I attend the Oscars? No, but I attended the Emmys and I attended the Golden Globes because one of our shows was nominated. And I got to walk the red carpet twice. It was fun. And I remember Steve Cannell saying, why do people, people always wonder about the entertainment business, and, it's hard work, but it's just, and Steve Cannell said this, it's just so damn much fun. And it is. But guess what? Anything where you get to experience your creative life is fun. And that's why it's so important to wake up your creative life. It's fun. I mean, if you really bring out the potential in you, your life opens up to possibilities you never dreamed of. It's unbelievable, really. I promise you. When you wake up your creative life, there are gifts and surprises waiting for you beyond your wildest dreams. And I want to talk about potential, because people always say, live up to your potential. Are you living up to your potential? Are you working your job to your fullest potential? The dictionary defines potential as having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. So if you don't work your fullest potential right now, what kind of future can you have? Sally had an inkling that one day she would tell her story, either to her children, or it was all a secret. She didn't share her story until she went through the grief recovery process with me and then hired me to help her write her story. And she recognized that her children didn't know anything about her, and her pain and her struggle and her full potential in becoming a mom in spite of what she'd gone through. Ooh, sorry. It wasn't until she experienced the loss of her son that she recognized the desire to have her story heard. It triggered who she was about to become, because grief triggered her desire to feel better and her desire to wake up her creative life. And so she started, as I said, working with people, joining groups for group recovery, helping women with cosmetics, and now a clothing business. That's a big deal to know someone for so long. Oops, I missed the last part of it, 8 Fry. You're going to have to post that again. I know what you were saying. To know somebody for so long and not even know them, really. Yeah. Her desire triggered her future. She has a successful clothing business right now. She's doing great. And she recognized that this is what she was meant to be doing all along. Would she have recognized it had her son not died? I don't know. I don't know how long she would have kept her story inside of her. Would her story still be inside of her if she hadn't met me? I don't know. She would have met somebody else that would have brought it out in her. It's a big deal to know someone. And then one detail changes the entire perspective. Yes! See, I like it. I like how you said it better. How many of you have something inside of you that you always wanted to do, but you never committed to your fullest potential? Okay, see, the hearts are starting. Hearts are popping up. I think so. The urging desire in our heart, what gives you joy is your gift, and your gift will take you far. Thank you, Brandy. That is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Realizing your full potential doesn't mean you have to change jobs. Oh, let me see this. There's a famous YouTuber that shares that years ago became a millionaire by sharing his family videos. Really? How funny. Realizing your full potential. Unfortunately, he was caught doing something horrible. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Realizing your full potential doesn't mean you have to change jobs. It doesn't mean you have to move somewhere. It doesn't mean you have to make all new friends. It doesn't mean you have to do anything other than begin. It just means bringing out your heart's desire and making a commitment to it in one form or another. Sally started by having a desire to write a book and a desire to help women in some form or another. And now it's all gone now that people are changing the perspective of someone they watch for years. Oh, that's very sad. Yeah, be careful what you post and publish and do. Writing a book changed the quality of Sally's life. It changed the quality of my life. It finally released those pent-up stories that she held in for so long. And her children didn't even know this about her. Now, not only does she have a book, but she has a legacy. Writing your story changed the quality of your life, Jessica. Wow. And Jessica's even getting married this year. That is fantastic. I am so proud of you, my dear. And if you don't know Jessica's book, it's My Pulse, His Will. So, where am I? I wrote so many notes. One thing that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in her book is in The Big Magic. She talks about living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than fear. And what that means is doing something that you always wanted to do, but setting aside the fear in order to do it. I wrote because I love to write. Putting it out there is a whole different story. I write because I was born to write. I really believe that. But if I hadn't written, I also believe that my creativity would have come out in different ways. Because I don't believe that creative people are only creative in one way. I think if they put their minds to it, they have the opportunity to funnel it into something else. I really believe that. For example, my late husband, when I met him, was a photographer. He was a photographer for the fire department in Carmel. And he also did some weddings and stuff like that. And so his ability to photograph meant that he could create stories in his mind with his photos. And he channeled it into writing. I love to write. As Lady Gaga says, I was born this way. It is a wonderful feeling to allow that creativity to come out, but it takes courage. You're going to be judged. You're going to be scrutinized. You're going to be maligned sometimes. And I experienced that this woman that belongs to I'm in a writers group on Facebook. And today she wrote how painful it was for her getting her first bad review on a book. And she said she was devastated. Oh, I loved her Super Bowl performance too. I love Lady Gaga, by the way. This author said how cruel and hurtful this review was, and that it was very apparent that this writer hadn't really even read the book, this reviewer. And I remember my first bad review. I was devastated. It was from a newspaper in, I don't know, somewhere, Minnesota or something. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I thought, didn't they know that this story came from my heart? And then I had to think of all the other good reviews I had gotten and the fact that my book had made a difference. It was my first bad review was from my first book, Rosie the Imperfect Angel. And so I told this broken author today that someone had once shared something really important with me. She said, you know, I don't trust a book on Amazon that doesn't have some bad reviews. Isn't it odd how a book is so much louder than a cheer? A boo is so much louder than a cheer. Isn't that true? Well, because it wounds our spirit. And I told, this person said that she didn't necessarily trust books that didn't have some bad reviews. And she said it's the bad reviews that actually give the good reviews more credibility. Because if somebody has all good reviews, then it's likely just friends and family are reviewing it. I mean, maybe, maybe not. But she felt that a bad review was a good measure that people were out there reading it and reviewing the book in reality. So I shared that with that broken author, and I try to think about that for any of my authors that I'm working with right now, that don't worry about the bad reviews. The bad ones give the good reviews credibility. So are you courageous enough to open your creative heart? Are you? Creativity, as we learned yesterday, is not necessarily a trait. It's a habit. It's something that you have to start. And thank you for those hearts. You have to start somewhere. It's a habit that is born out of desire and your creative mind and your commitment. And your commitment. So, think about that. Do you have the courage to let your creative heart soar? I hope so. There's nothing more satisfying than being able to say your creativity made a difference in people's lives. You have to start and know to focus on one thing. Make a commitment. Focus comes with making a commitment, Brandy. Make a commitment. Books don't write themselves. It's one of the hardest things in the world to do in the beginning. But once you get into it, once you commit to it, once you start it, and once you see where it's going, it flows. It's a beautiful feeling. I've completed my 5th book. I'm in the editing process now. I see how I've grown just in the process. I started writing it last July. And I see how I've grown even just since writing it starting last July. You grow as a human being when you do this. You grow. Your perspective grows. It changes you. I promise. So if any of you are interested in writing your books, check out my website. I have several writers programs for you. sandypeckinpah.com. I have many writers programs for you, and you don't even have to write a book. But I'm telling you, knowing your story is huge. Now, also for on Kindle, on Amazon, I have a little booklet for 99 cents called Discover Your Heart's Desire. It's a sort of an interactive program that helps you sort of wake up your creative life with some ideas and writing and some thoughts that you might have. We accept toxic beliefs of ourselves to placate those who tried to shut us down. Today it hurts you. Yes, and then tomorrow you learn to rise up. So if you're interested, you can check out, you can just go to sandypeckinpah.com, and it is, there's a link to Amazon under, I think it's called Books books and Kindles or something, a drop-down menu on my website, and go to the little 99-cent Kindle version of Discover Your Heart's Desire. And it's a little interactive, take you a couple of hours to really explore your creative life, what you always thought you wanted to do. Sort of helps you wake that up. And continue on, my friends. Now, this week is my birthday, Thursday. You're so welcome, Jessica. I'm so glad. I will enjoy my dinner. We're going to have some fun tonight, cooking with all those things that we bought at that little store. And, Sister Sue, we have to go visit that store next time you're in town, because I think you'll enjoy buying some of these things. But my birthday's Thursday, and we're going to be celebrating my birthday, so I'm not going to be here on Thursday. But tomorrow, I believe I will be doing a broadcast. I have some late appointments. I will post in Twitter, and I hope that you have an opportunity to join me. I'm really going to try to join you. Okay? So thank you all for joining me, all of you. Yeah, March 2nd, my birthday. Thank you. It's 17 equals victory. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to seize it. I'm excited. I'm happy to be the age I am. I've lived a lot of life and proud of it. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. You are the best. I'll see you tomorrow at 5.